I'm Don Nystrom, and I have a couple guests today who will join me in discussing the upcoming elections. 2020 is a big year for elections. We have lots of them. We'll go through what's available and when the elections are, but we're getting ready for that. So I brought in people who know all about the election process. And right across from me is Trent Miner, who is the Wood County Clerk and a former supervisor, correct?
Yes,
On
correct.
the county board?
Yes.
And you are an elected official, right?
I am.
And on my right is someone who's familiar to this program, as we could probably do it by memory.
We could, Don.
Deb Hall is the city clerk, and she's responsible, of course, just for the city of Marshfield. And she is not elected.
No,
You're appointed for good behavior, right?
that's right. I did my time.
Okay. Well, the reason for this is that we'd like to encourage people to run for a public office, and there's a lot of them available, and we're going to go through the process. It's a rewarding adventure to be an elected official. I've certainly been there myself. I think I ran 8 times. I won 6, lost 2. I lost the big one. But I enjoyed the time, and I think that you might too. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And let's start with what offices are available that you might possibly be interested in. Let's first start with our friend Trent from the Pittsville area.
You bet.
Works in Rapids.
So in the county, all the county board supervisor seats are up in April. The process to start running has already started. December 1st was the first day they could do nomination papers and start circulating those. If anybody is interested in running for a county board supervisor, they're certainly welcome to give my office a call, and we can kind of walk them through compensation, what's involved, even time commitment, because there is a time commitment involved when you run for a public office. Right. It's not just the meetings, as you well know. It's not just the meetings, it's the preparation before, and you do a lot of reading and research, so we can help them through that. We're happy to do that.
Okay. Now, the county districts that are not the same as the city districts, right, in terms of residency and if you're qualified to run in a certain area, I'm not sure how many from Northwood County. I'm trying to think. There's maybe 3 of them that are in the city, or 4.
4, 5 in the city. Yeah, I'm rolling through, but they sometimes will represent not only the city but parts of the surrounding
Lincoln
townships as well.
Lincoln, right on the
right on the border.
Edge. Okay. Now, in addition to, and we're going to talk about each of those positions. Well, let me just back up and let's talk about the supervisor. They have how many full board meetings?
There's 1 full board meeting each month, and on average there's 1 committee meeting per month. Now, you may be on more than 1 committee, right, so it just depends, but for sure 1 board meeting a month at least.
Right, and that's typically what starts at around 9 and runs until about noonish?
Yeah, a long meeting will run until noon. Usually they're about an hour and a half. We did have a night meeting this year. The county board voted to have an evening meeting, which was well attended because there was a hot button issue on the agenda at that point. But yeah, most of them
typically they're during the day.
They're during the day.
Always in Wisconsin Rapids, which is the county seat.
Yeah, the county board meetings are, but our committee meetings do travel throughout the county. The executive committee will move throughout the county. They'll come up to Norwood. The Parks Committee will meet in the different parks throughout. So yeah, they move around. And actually our Health and Human Services Committee goes back and forth. One time they're at Edgewater Haven in Port Edwards. The next time they're at Norwood. Right. So they move around. Yeah,
I was on the Norwood board after I retired from being a supervisor. But I didn't know that the other boards. Now, to find out what committees meet when, of course, the county has a website.
The county has a website, and they're certainly welcome to give us a call as well. We can walk them through that, where to find it.
Because this time of year, driving to anywhere is a little dicey.
Problematic.
Yeah. It certainly is. So, okay. Deb, what's up in the city of Marshfield for elections this year?
Yep, it's going to be a busy year, but for our local offices, we have the mayor, and then we have the odd districts. So districts 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 are up for office. or for election in April.
And I'm one of the odd districts.
Yes, you are.
Right? And who has taken out papers already? Not filed any, but who's...
So we've had 2 incumbents file non-candidacy papers, and that would be District 3 Alderperson Chris Jockheck and District 5 Steve McSwain. So they have chosen not to seek re-election. Mike Fire in District 1 has taken out papers
and intends to run.
and intends to run. All these people have taken out papers, but they haven't filed nomination papers yet, so that means their name does not go on the ballot until those nomination papers
Right.
are filed
Right.
and qualified. And then in District 3, we have a Quentin Rosendish that has taken out papers. District 5, Ed Wagner, who used to be an alderperson
Right.
and is seeking to run for office again. In 7, we have Adam Fisher. And in 9, we have Tom Butke, and both of those are incumbents.
Right, okay. Now,
And of course, the mayor has taken out papers, Mayor McManus. He's going to run again.
right. Okay, let's talk about the process of getting on the ballot. We already know that if you want to know if an incumbent is running, that they have to file papers
Right.
to say that they're not, or at least they're supposed to.
Right.
So you know, if you didn't run against your neighbor who's a really good person, you would find that out. But let's say that there is an open position, either on the county board or in the city, and maybe it's different between each. So let's start with Trent. What about how and when and process for getting a nomination paper?
So really, for the spring elections, when we talk about local elections, that process pretty much starts December 1st. And that's when you can start circulating nomination papers to run for office. There's actually 3 documents that need to be filed in order for you to gain ballot access. One is the campaign finance registration statement. That just tells you, are you going to spend more than $2,000? And if you are, you have to file campaign finance reports. Most of the time, I don't have any of my county board supervisors ever spend more than that $2,000. I don't know about in the city.
Yeah, usually only if they have a race going on and they need to campaign hard. But they can always amend that if they're choosing for exemption at the beginning.
Right.
So that's a $2,000 limit. You also need to file the declaration of candidacy. Those 2 documents can be filed anytime.
What does that mean?
That's just how you want your name to appear on the ballot and that you are actually running for that position. So it's
Okay,
called
so
a declaration of candidacy.
So if you wanted to use your nickname?
Nicknames, no. Not necessarily.
But?
You can. There's some latitude, but there's also some rules involved there too.
Okay.
It doesn't come up very often. We had one in the school district here a few years ago where we had some issues and we were able to resolve that between the school district and the county clerks that were involved. But usually not nicknames. We want your name as it is.
Okay, because some people, like Marge and Margaret,
Yeah, it could
Right.
be a version of your name.
Yeah, a
right?
version of your name.
Like
Which
Robert
is-
could go as
yeah.
Bob.
similar to the poll register, right?
Well, in order to register to vote, you have to put your name as it appears on your driver's license.
Yeah.
So however your name appears on your driver's license is how you would register to vote.
Okay, so if you get the papers and you've signed the document and you have your name established and you have it's not a really detailed form of financing, you don't have to tell them how much money you have or anything.
No.
It's just where you're going to keep records in the event that, and that's, I had to do that when I ran for mayor because I spent myself and my supporters spent quite a bit, but you could use your checking account if you wish.
Yes.
As long as you have a record of what you take in and what you spend.
Right. As far as campaign finance law, if you're not really going to have a big campaign, you can go ahead and use your own personal account. But they do highly recommend that if you actually do have a campaign committee, that you get a separate
Sure.
account and keep those
Sure.
separately.
Yeah.
And all that information is put on this campaign registration statement.
Sure. So it's not a big deal.
Right.
So how many signatures would a person have to run for the county board?
20 to 40.
And it's best to have.
More than 20. Yeah, because there are times when you strike names. When you look at a nomination form, you fill out the top, which is basically who's running for what office.
Right.
Then you have your signatures. And then the person that circulates that nomination form certifies that, yep, I witness all these signatures and they sign and date it.
Right.
Once in a while you run into issues where they sign it before they get done getting the signatures. So if the date is December 7th, but somebody signed on December 9th, that name gets stricken. So there are, we watch that pretty close. We go through those nomination papers pretty closely.
Or they signed and they're not within that district.
Right.
That
Yep.
happens quite often because a lot of times you have boundary streets and somebody on one side of the street is not in the same district, but they're not always aware of that.
Close enough,
Right.
but not close enough.
Right.
The person who circulates on behalf of the candidate has to actually sign the form, correct?
At the
Will you
end.
rubber stamp it?
No.
No, and I always recommend anybody that's circulating nomination papers, do not sign anything until you get that last signature on that page.
Right. Now, I have seen in the past, not recently, but people who would leave nomination papers at the convenience store or some service counter someplace. That's a no-no?
That's a big no-no.
Big no-no.
Big
They should
no-no.
actually
Don't do that.
see.
Exclamation point, big no-no.
Big.
Yeah.
Because anybody could sign it or maybe take it, you know? And,
Right. And something else we look for, and it really only happens if you have a contested race, is somebody can only sign one person's nomination papers. So if they signed both of them that are running, we'll cross out whoever, they signed last.
the last person, so you could have, and that does happen
It happens a lot.
a lot, because I recall my own experiences
Yeah.
where people said, I'd really like to sign yours, but,
Right.
and I'm very sympathetic to that.
right.
That certainly can happen. So, okay, so once you got the papers signed and you have more than 20, you need how many for city offices?
Well, actually, our process is exactly the same. Same paperwork, same amount of signatures, except if you're running for a citywide office such as mayor, you need a minimum of 200, a maximum of 400 signatures.
Okay.
So same process, same nomination, just more signatures.
Now, in the terms of the another office which neither one of you are involved with is the school boards. They have a different process.
Yeah.
Theirs is a lot different. They don't have to go through the nomination paper process. They can just declare their candidacy and that's it. Yes.
Right. And
Yep.
if you would like information about being on a school board,
Yep.
you contact the school board offices, not
correct.
the city or county clerk, because
Right.
that's not something that you're involved with. You can refer them to the right place.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll get them to the right place.
Right.
But no, there's a lot of rules for campaigning. Do either of you help people that are running say, what do I do in terms of
Well, as far as the city, I
rules?
give them information on where sign placement can be, because it can't be in public right away. And a lot of the state has taken a lot of those requirements out of our hands because it used to be you couldn't put them up so far in advance and they had to be down. But now it's pretty much where they're putting them, at least for us. And I also give them information on disclaimers because if they are campaigning, they have to have a disclaimer on their signs or
Attribution. The big word that the Ethics Commission uses is attribution, paid for by.
Right.
Who paid for that sign? They want to know. Is it a committee? Is it a person? Is it a special interest? So those attributions have to be on the signs
Right.
and whatever campaign material they give out.
Now, what about people that are really like or dislike somebody? They make up a handmade sign that says, don't vote for Don because he's a
Yeah.
whatever. Can people do that on their own?
well,
I don't think I've seen much. I have out in the country, I've seen
yeah.
that.
Actually, if somebody is either supporting or not supporting, they should be filing not a declaration candidacy, a registration campaign statement because there's different committees. Like there's committees for or against a referendum.
Sure.
And anybody doing that, they need to file paperwork as well.
Okay, but as a First Amendment type thing, if
Right.
I'd like,
If they're doing it on their own personal property, I don't know if we have a lot of
I don't think I'd have a
latitude
lot.
on that. But if there's an actual group formed,
yes.
then they have to fill out that paperwork.
Right. But I go up north a lot in
Yeah.
the summer and I see big signs, yard signs that somebody made up themselves and they say
Sure.
so and so. I mean, we support something
Right.
or another.
Yeah.
I support the pool project and I've got a yard sign on
Sure.
it. But that's not a committee.
No, I mean, if you're just putting it on your own private property, there's probably
Say
not
what
a
you
whole
want
lot
as
we
long
can.
as it's
Right,
properly placed.
right.
And that's often misunderstood. Right now, I dare anybody to put a sign in their yard. It is frozen. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's also a challenge too.
Yeah.
And there are many print shops that will produce signs for you. And if you're going to do that, even if you don't put them out because the ground's frozen, it's best to get early because you get your choice of colors. If you want a blue or a red sign, and if you get there first, then the printer will say, well, gee, you can't have, you could have blue, but somebody else
Right.
that you're running against has it. So we won't mention specifically the salaries, but each job does, whether it's county board or alderman or supervisor, does have, and as you mentioned, they have different meetings, you know, depends on what committee you're in, the frequency of, but it is a part-time position, and it does require homework
Right.
and attending meetings, and it's a small amount perhaps, but it's compensation for the inconvenience and that you're doing, and that's a wonderful thing. Let's talk a little bit before we go into maybe some tips on how to get elected. But let's go into the actual election process a bit, because let me back up again.
Okay.
How many elections are there this year, and when are they? Cool.
Okay, so in the western part of Wood County, which includes the city of Marshfield, there will be 5 elections in 2020. So we have a spring primary on February 18th. We have this
February 18th.
February 18th. We have a
Who's on that? Excuse me, Trent. What?
Well, right now, yeah, we're assuming, there's a lot of assumptions because no candidates have all their paperwork in, and those candidates have not been certified yet. They have until January 7th to get that paperwork in. So we're assuming there's going to be a spring primary for state Supreme Court.
Okay.
There could be local offices that end up popping up, say
Okay.
school board or city alderperson or mayor or whatever.
Okay.
But there's also a special primary for the 7th congressional seat coming up.
right.
And we should probably we'll talk about that more in depth in a little bit. But we'll have the April spring election. We will have a May 12th special election for the Congress 7th District. That's replacing Sean Duffy
Okay.
from Duffy's resignation. And then
So
we'll
the
have
primary for the congressional is February
18th.
and then the actual pick one of the 2 remaining would be in April.
Correct.
Okay.
No,
May.
May 12th.
May.
That's what.
Right.
So the reason why they did the governor's order combine the primaries. At least we can combine the primaries together. But because of federal guidelines and timetables that are established by federal law, you can't get it onto the regular election onto that April ballot. So that's why we're having a special election for Congress on May 12th. There isn't enough time between the February election, the time that the Elections Commission can certify, and then to get ballots out. There isn't enough time. That's why we have to push that
So
date
there'll
out.
be a special.
Right.
There is a
Nothing else
special
on the ballot.
Nothing else but on the 11th, on that ballot in May.
My goodness.
And then we'll have the typical August primary, and then we will have the November election.
Now the August primary is a big one,
Partisan primary.
That's the partisan
Where they have to
primary.
vote a straight party ticket.
but that's the presidential candidates.
No, the presidential primary, the presidential
That's what I
preference
was
is in
asking.
April. All the other offices that will be on the ballot in November, their primary is in August. But the presidential primary is in April.
Right, and I think the state moved that up, didn't it? I mean, one time it was like,
The partisan primary used to always be in September, but because of federal guidelines and having to have ballots out, they moved it to August.
now, as you mentioned, I think it's worth highlighting again, is that we no longer can pick between parties. If you're going to, you can't vote a straight ticket in what election?
You have to vote a straight party ticket in August.
In August.
All the other elections, you do not have to vote a straight party ticket. So the only straight party ticket is the August election.
Okay.
They used to this has been a number of years ago, you used to be able to vote in a November election, in a general. You could pick your party, and then a ballot or a vote would be allotted for each person in that party. That went away a number of years ago. You gotta want it now. You have to choose your people you want to represent you.
And I know some people are still thinking they can, but
Right.
and it's a good idea. Now, actually, the supervisor's offices, are they run on a party ticket?
Nonpartisan. So your April election, typically your spring elections are nonpartisan, your fall elections are partisan.
Okay. But the now, like the elected offices as yours is,
Yes.
and the sheriff,
Yes.
is that up this year too?
So the constitutional officers for the county that are up this year are district attorney, the county clerk, the county treasurer, and the register of deeds. They're up this time.
But the sheriff isn't.
Sheriff was up 2 years ago. Those are staggered
He's got
now.
a 4-year term?
We all have 4-year terms
We
now.
all have 4 years.
We all have 4 years.
Staggered,
They're
little-
staggered.
A little
Yep.
bit anyway.
And those positions you'll see in the fall, August and November. They're not on the spring ballot.
Yeah, and those are quote partisan, but
They
in
are.
fact, most people ignore that. I mean,
Correct.
it
Correct.
doesn't really matter if the coroner is a Democrat or Republican. I don't think it matters. I don't know.
One thing, and maybe we'll touch on it later, but since we're talking about elections, I just wanted to explain the February primary a little bit.
Please.
So, like Trent said, we have the Congressional District 7 primary along with our local primary. So people that are running for local office, they have until January 7th to file their nomination papers. But because we have a congressional federal election primary, we have to have those ballots out by January 2nd, and they've already filed their paperwork. So come January 2nd, people that have requested an absentee ballot are going to receive 2 ballots. And we'll have an explanation in the envelopes for them. But because federal guidelines say we have to have that federal ballot out so many days before the primary, those ballots will go out January 2nd with only the Congressional District 7 office on that ballot. Then I believe it's by January 28th, we have to have the other ballot out. Now that ballot will also include the District 7 Congressional office. But what will happen is those that vote on both ballots, only that last ballot will count. We'll only bring 1 ballot forward. So it's going to be a very confusing election. It's confusing for all of us. But we will try to give as much guidance as possible. We'll have instructions in the ballots. So we just wanted to get the word out
Okay.
that those that are on our absentee ballot request, if they receive 2 ballots, don't be worried. I mean, it's just how we have to administer that
But
election.
each ballot will be different. I mean, it's not the same
The
ballot. Not-
second ballot's going to be the very full ballot, the same ballot everybody will get on February 18th. But because federal law says we have to have that congressional seat out, that's going to be like a paper-only ballot, just with only that seat on it.
Yeah, that's nice. I would hope that as we get closer to the February one, that you'd come out to the studio and do a public service announcement, and we will run that frequently to help people, and hopefully that will. But I can see there will be some confusion.
This is a very unique situation,
Yeah. Yes.
one that we don't experience that often.
That's
but
only because of
it's a
the
special
Duffy resignation.
Exactly, it's a
Yeah.
special.
Sure.
There are actually 2 governor executive orders that came out for this election.
Yeah.
The first order that came out followed state law perfectly, but unfortunately it did not follow federal law.
Yeah.
So then we have to amend that and get it to so that it complies with federal. So
Yeah.
it's
has
been
been-
challenging. It's been challenging.
Very challenging.
And confusing on some aspects, but we'll get through it and we'll make sure we're get as
The
much
important
information
thing
out.
is everybody will be able to vote. And
Yes.
that is our.
Well, that's important. Okay, let's go through the process of getting absentee. I know there are, well, my neighbors over there, long gone because it got cold. Whoopee. So how do they get their absentee ballots? ballots.
You want me to take that?
I'll take
Oh,
that.
you
You're
go.
a municipal. Yep, you
Okay,
take
that's
that.
fine. So in order for us to mail an absentee ballot out, we need a written request from the elector. That could come as on an application form. They could simply email me, but what they can't do is just call and tell me to mail them an absentee ballot. So what we really recommend is the state has a website out there called My Vote. We always refer people to that website. They can register to vote on My Vote. They can request an absentee ballot. If they're already registered, they can go on there and see what their sample ballot is going to look like once we have all the names certified and in there. It's a very useful website.
I've been on that site and it's user-friendly. However,
Right.
we know a lot of people either don't have access to the internet or they're not sure
Right.
how to use it. They get nervous about it. Could I fill one out for somebody else
No.
and have them send it to my neighbor or for a friend or something? No.
So if we're getting a written letter, because they have to sign that document.
That's
Now, if
true.
it's emailed to us, we don't really have a signature. I suppose there's really no way to know exactly who's submitting it, but truly it needs to come from that elector. Another way to get an absentee ballot is that you can always come into the clerk's office and vote right in my office.
Sure.
And for sure, the 2 weeks leading up to an election, we always have those available. Sometimes I open it up even before that, just
Sure.
depending when I know we're going to
Right,
have the ballots. So
So the simplest thing, if you're not quite sure, is just call your office.
just come to my office. We have stuff out on the website. And just remember that if you're requesting for a specific election, you're not a permanent absentee voter, you still have to submit your photo ID. So if you're requesting it emailed or coming into the office, make sure you have your photo ID. You either attach it to your email or your form, or you come in and
Sure.
show it to us.
When we get closer, perhaps we can come out here and go through the process of what type of ID do you need and so
Okay,
forth and,
yeah.
and
Yep.
so on. Okay, I think that's pretty well covers it. Anything else? We'll go into some tips about being successful, hopefully, if you run. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we hit the
Yeah.
high points.
Just,
Oh.
I stress, if anybody is interested in running for a local office, to contact my office. I have all the paperwork. I can go over our meetings, because our meeting schedule is different than the county's. We meet more often than the county does. But we'll go over all that and, make sure that you get packets or how to obtain a packet.
Sure.
So that you can follow along up until the election.
Right. I guess the question. I forgot my question. Oh well, let's skip it. Probably wasn't that important. And the camera guy said, "It's okay." Let's talk a little bit about being successful if you run. First of all, as a pitch, I'd say, everybody in the community should contribute to the community one way or the other. Some people are volunteers. They work for this organization. They're, fraternal groups and social groups, and that's a wonderful thing. And some people don't do that, and this is an opportunity to do this, which is to run for an office. And until you get in, you don't know. You don't have to run perpetually. I know one of the aldermen did for 2 years and not going to run again. So
Right.
that's fine. At least you got your feet wet, and you say, well, that's interesting. I did what I could, but it's not for me. So
I
it's
think that's
not
a good point on, these are 2-year terms for our
Absolutely.
city.
Yes.
Right. So we'd encourage people to give it some thought, because
Yes.
if we all pitch in and do our own thing and help the neighborhood in general,
Right.
the village as we call it. All right. Some of the practical aspects of running, and we already talked about yard signs. Good luck trying to get them in the ground, but get them early. Pick your color out and your slogan if you're going to have one, and be ready. I encourage people to watch the council or the board meetings. They are both televised, and you'll find them on our site, which is Marshfield Media Access, and also we go right to YouTube. I know the county also televises them, and we get a copy of it up here.
Yes.
So that would also be on, I believe it'd be on our website.
And I think Deb and I both put the videos on our website as well for, on the county board meeting.
Sure.
We post that link right onto the website, on the
And
county
I
website.
have to say that the county website is much better than it was 10 years ago. I mean, it's easy to access. It used to, I didn't think a whole lot about it, but right now it's very user-friendly,
Yes.
as is the cities. We now have a full-time communications division of 2 people, a 2-person
Two more than
division.
we had, Don.
And I think they're doing a great job. I
They
enjoy
are.
working with them, and so we have a lot of communications out there. So I mean, if you're going to run for, say, an alderman or supervisor, you should know what the topics are. If you don't want to watch the meetings, the minutes are posted
Yes.
on both sites
Yes.
under the, and you get familiar with the issues. You have to know the issues because there will be candidate forums along the way, and hopefully we'll host them here if there's any of interest. So that's important, and it's also in the case of the incumbents who are not running, to give them a call and see what's the good and the bad of being a supervisor or whatever.
Right.
And I'm sure they'd be very helpful. Or if you're running against an incumbent, to talk to another alderman or supervisor to get a lay of the land, how many meetings and, what do you get paid, and if you get paid, and mileage, and all those little things. It's helpful to talk to them.
And staff is always very willing to sit down
Yes.
and talk to anybody, so reach out to city staff as well.
And county staff, yeah,
Right.
ditto. I mean, a lot of times the clerk's office, especially the clerk's office, it's general information station in our offices. When there are questions that come up from constituents, they find the clerk's office most often, and both of our offices are happy to help out. And if you have questions of a certain department, we can get you in the right direction. We're happy to do that. That's what we're there for.
Yep. Very user-friendly. We are the users, and you are the people that can help us.
We try our best.
In terms of campaigning, that I think it's pretty well established. Social media is the quote in thing right now. The Facebooks, Instagrams, Twitters, and so forth. And a lot of people do that. I know from our programming that we do, we can tell that there's a lot of value. Even online advertising, if you will, campaigning is it's not that expensive versus printed media, which is could be a little more expensive. The endorsements are optional if you can get an endorsement from somebody that's well liked, but personally I don't think it helps a lot. But some people want to have endorsements, and
There's nothing like going out and pounding on doors. All politics is local, as Tip O'Neill
It
used to
is.
say.
You're absolutely correct. Although I personally, I prefer if somebody just hangs something on my doorknob and I read it, versus if I'm having dinner or something. It's hard. And it's also very time consuming. There's nothing wrong with circulating, going to the, what do we call it, rubber chicken dinners or something, where you're circulating. The church events and the community events and all that type of thing is where you can meet a lot of people at once. But going door to door now is a little more, especially in the winter. And some people don't want to be bothered, and some invite you in and you can't get away.
Right.
So there's value to each.
Yep.
Certainly if you're running for a smaller office like alderman, it's easier to do than if you're running for mayor. Marilyn Hardiker, bless her soul, went door to door, and it worked for her.
A lot of people like to put a face to a name, so
Yeah.
if you have the time, it's probably a very good
And
idea to go door to door.
absolutely for sure that this station is going to be doing candidate interviews. And so hopefully I'll be part of that, and we'll interrogate the folks. And we'll have forums that we will broadcast, and that will be true, I'm sure, in the Rapids area and in the county offices, especially if there's any competition. We will invite them, school board. So get an idea what's going on and take the plunge. It could be a lot of fun. It really is. So, anything else either of you would like to add?
No, I guess I just want to share our phone number in case anybody would like to call the city clerk's office, and that's 486-2023. Otherwise, our website is ci.marshfield.wi.us. There's a lot of useful information, and by all means, never hesitate to call. We'd like to give you the information you're looking for.
Trent, anything?
I'll piggyback off of Deb. Great minds think alike. Our phone number at the county clerk's office is going to be 715-421-8460, and our website is co.wood.wi.us. And again, you can find a lot of information on the
Right.
website and give us a call. We're happy to help out.
If you can't remember that, just do a search.
Do a search.
It shows, you know,
You'll get there.
Where they do a Google or whatever browser you're using. You forgot to say one really important thing, Deb.
And what is that?
If you'd like to help us on the election.
Oh,
Go
yes,
ahead.
please.
Look at the camera and
With
make
all
your
the elections coming up, we are in dire need of some poll workers. So if you live in the city of Marshfield, or in that fact, you just have to live in Wood County or Marathon County, please contact my office or send me an email. My email is deb.hall, Hall, at ci.marshfield.wi.us. I do supply training, and even if you have a few hours you can share on election day, we'd be happy to have you join my very fine group of poll workers, and Donna's one of them, so I can say that.
Yeah, and the point is that people in my age who really aren't interested in working a 12 or 16-hour shift, but you will accept part-time workers,
Yes.
and you will train us to do that.
Right.
So it's really important, folks. We get all this done, and then we have to have somebody there that can run the election fairly.
Mm-hmm.
We have election inspectors who will answer any questions that you're not familiar with the responses. So, and do we have all the inspectors lined up? Or?
Well, actually, tonight the Common Council will be approving the 2020 to 2021 group, but I can always add more, Don.
Okay. And some of the jobs are not necessarily in a book. I mean, there's
Right.
ballot counters, and there's
Greeters.
greeters and helpful people that
Yes.
register and so forth. So there's different kinds of positions.
Right.
But thank you for mentioning that.
Well, thank you for reminding me.
Hey, we thank both of you, Trent Miner, the county clerk, and Deb Hall, our faithful city clerk, for coming in and sharing this information. I hope you tell your friends about our program and have them watch too, especially if they have an interest in being an elected official,
Yes.
or if they know somebody that might be interested. The more people that run, the better the community will be in the long run. So,
Right.
okay. Thank you for watching. I'm Don Nystrom, and this has been Up Close.